All right, hello everyone. Adam Benigni, just outside of Buffalo, Sal Maiorana over in Rochester. This is Believe in Bills, our first full show, Sal, and probably best to kind of maybe give a full overview. What, close to 2 weeks now into training camp, first preseason game coming up this weekend at home against Chicago. I would start off by asking you, I don't know, you think we should start at receiver? Is that a good place?
Well, that's been the hot topic, Adam. Everyone wants to talk about receiver this year because, the Stefon Diggs quandary. So, yeah, that's what everybody – the crowds have been big out there, and I can guarantee you the biggest ovations have come when Josh Allen has completed passes to these receivers. So, yeah, that's as good a place as any to start. Look, we've discussed this in the media for 4 months now, that Stefon Diggs is gone, and, oh, my God, what's going to happen to the Bills' offense? He is a great player. There's no denying that, right? We saw it for 4 years in Buffalo. He's gone, and I think the reason he's gone is because he's a player who was in decline, Adam. The second half of last year, he was no longer the Stefon Diggs that was here 3 years, and then even for the early part of last year. So I just have a little glitch there. So everyone's worried about this. But I think the Bills are going to be okay. I think the group they have with Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins is coming in. We'll see on Valdez-Scantling. They've got people in place here that I think that can pick up the slack for Stefon Diggs. It's not like they're giving up on Diggs from 2021 and 2020 for sure. This was 2023 Stefon Diggs, a player who couldn't get open in the second half of the season. I think the Bills are going to be okay. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? You talk to people around the league, personnel people, there was no question he had lost at least half a step, maybe a step. He was no longer considered a legitimate deep threat. He didn't scare defenses like he had in the past. Everyone kind of knew that. He dropped a number of very catchable footballs, not the least of which was with the season on the line against Kansas City in the postseason. If you're going to have the approach that he does, sort of the passive-aggressive, cryptic stuff on social media that we had addressed with him, and his brother saying that repeatedly, we got to get him out of there and that sort of a thing. That was all a lot to digest. And if you're not going to make the catch with the season on the line in the midst of all of that, and your game is in a state of decline, and I think they're absolutely right to move on from him. Not to mention the fact, the salary cap implications and having to deal with that moving forward and kind of resetting this roster. So it all made sense to me when they made the decision to move on. What is your sense of how well this sort of by committee approach is going to work for this offense?
Yeah, look, that is the issue. For 3.5 years, they had a true number one receiver. And when Josh Allen needed a play to be made, he usually looked for Stefon Diggs. And Stefon Diggs usually made that play, right? So that is a tough thing that you're losing in the offense. Again, I go back to he wasn't the same player at the end of last year. So someone's got to step into that role this year. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say anybody on this roster right now is going to step in and be Stefon Diggs. Even second half last year, Stefon Diggs was pretty good. I don't think anybody on this roster is going to be that, at least early in the season. There are a couple of candidates, though, who I think could eventually be the guy that Allen's going to look to when he needs a big play made. Khalil Shakir, for an undersized guy, there's something about him, Adam, that he has found a way. He's understanding more and more how to get open and how to find a seam in a zone and even to beat man coverage. He's gotten very good, especially last year when he got his opportunity. We've seen it in camp. Now, you haven't been over here for camp, but we're watching this every day, and he is making plays against the Bills secondary every day. And some of them, it's not all been those quick routes that he specializes in. He's been getting down into the intermediate area of the field, and that's what Stefon Diggs was. Stefon Diggs was an intermediate area receiver. He wasn't a deep threat. So I think Shakir is definitely a guy you could look at who might step into that role. Curtis Samuel so far, look, 3 years, $24 million. It doesn't seem like it's much of a contract. They don't have a huge investment in him. That guy can play, Adam. He has really done a lot of things so far in the offense. Now, he had a rough night the other night in the stadium, granted. I mean, if 36,000 people were there, saw him drop like 3 balls. But we haven't seen much of that at St. John Fisher. He's been a very good, very diverse player in practice so far. So there's 2 guys that I think are going to be on the field with the starting unit, and then they're going to have to figure out what to do with Keon Coleman. And I'll say this, he's a rookie, so I'm not going to put a big burden on him yet, but he has flashed almost every day, Adam. I mean, he's made plays. He's got that brash attitude, and you know me, I'm as old school as they come. I don't buy into all that BS. I want to see a guy play and prove himself before he starts giving me shopping tips at Macy's and all the other crap. But I will give this guy credit. He has got a worker's mentality. He has been out there working hard, and he's making plays. So it's going to be fun to watch him in the preseason to see what he can do against another defense.
Yeah, he's won the personality and press conference game.
Sure has.
So the expectations are high, and there's a lot of enthusiasm around him, and with good reason. I think he's a good player, but we've all seen, and the transition as a rookie at the receiver position, that grade isn't as steep as it once was in the National Football League. We're seeing young receivers come in and make a real immediate impact now more and more. So the Bills obviously hope that's the case with him. I'm very interested to see how this all works. But I do think, as we mentioned, the passing game here, I mean, how much of this, in your opinion, Sal, goes through Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other point. I mean, the receivers are going to play a key role, obviously, and they've got to get somebody, community task to replace Diggs. But we've all been talking about this really since Diggs left, that the Bills could very easily transition to a team that plays the way the Chiefs do. And they have their passing game go through their tight end, Travis Kelce. I'm not comparing the 2 players. There's no comparison right now. But the structure of the offense, you could definitely see that Kincaid could become the number 1 option on several route concepts, really. I don't think it'll be to the level that the Chiefs go through Kelce. I don't think we're going to see Kincaid get targeted 150 times this year, but I think his target level is going to go up from last season. And I've written about this a couple times. What I need to see from Kincaid, if the Bills' offense is going to go through him, if he's going to be the number 1 option or read on a lot of these plays, they need to get him downfield at him, because there were too many balls. I think I totaled it up. There was from behind the line of scrimmage to 9 yards out, were like 75% of his targets. He needs to get in the pattern, downfield, in the seam, and make the plays that Travis Kelce makes. Then you can definitely run your offense through him, and that's got to happen this year.
Well, I think he definitely has the athleticism for that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. We saw it at Utah. This is why they drafted him. I think they drafted him. Well, they drafted him in thinking that Dawson Knox was going to be their traditional inline tight end. Because if you remember last year, they wanted to go a lot of 12 personnel. They wanted to have Knox and Kincaid on the field at the same time, and Knox got hurt. So Kincaid as the regular tight end, Kincaid in that slot, or Knox as the tight end, Kincaid in the slot, get him downfield. It didn't work out because it ended up that Kincaid had to play probably more snaps inline than the Bills would have hoped. And I think that might have changed some of the route concepts that they used.
Of course, this offense and the franchise really centers around number 17, Josh Allen, a quarterback.
Yeah,
We'd be remiss if we didn't.
That's a good point. Yeah.
if we didn't at least address how he's looked so far. We know the level he's at, truly elite in the National Football League. I thought the narrative heading into training camp, that he's overrated, was clickbait crap, and nothing more than that. But having said that, with these changes, how has Allen looked to you? I know there's some talk about him kind of readjusting his throwing motion as well. What's your sense of sort of where he's at in the process? And we know the level that he's starting out with at camp to begin with anyway, and where he's at in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to what he tinkered with in his throwing motion. It all looks the same to me, and it all looks pretty good, quite frankly. So I don't know what he's exactly doing there. I think he talked about last season his mechanics got a little bit out of whack in the second half. Maybe some of his footwork wasn't right, and I think he tried to clean that up, with Jordan Palmer when he goes back out to California. So again, it's hard for me to really look at him in practice and say, oh yeah, that's what he was doing. Because we don't know. We have no clue what actually is going on. But he has looked good. Now, the other night, again, I point to Friday night because there were so many people there, 36,000, saw what was happening. The offense didn't have a good night. But don't pin if you were there, don't pin what you saw in that practice on what's been happening here at Fisher, because Allen and the offense, I think, have been very good. And remember, they're going against a pretty good defense. Granted, they're not tackling and it's not overly physical, but they're playing against a pretty good group of defenders. And I think the offense has looked, at least the passing game, you can't tell what the running game, they've looked sharp. And I think Allen looks sharp. So, look, he's not the problem, Adam. I mean, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the world playing for this team. I don't care about what NFL network called Tyreek Hill the best player in the NFL. I mean, come on. He's a great player. He's not, to me, he's not Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, probably name 4 or 5 other quarterbacks. But Josh Allen is elite of the elite, and I'm not worried about him at all.
Yeah, neither am I. I mean, he gives this, regardless of the roster turnover. And I think some of maybe what you saw on Friday night, I mean, I expected some hiccups, especially with the new kind of concept, what they're dealing with, what we talked about at the receiver position. I mean, I think that just comes with the territory, and I've never been one to read into very much at all at this time of year, short of the injury situation. So let's go there right now, because that is the headline. Now, the injuries at safety, we talked about this last week in our sort of kickoff show, but I'm interested in your opinion. Given the timing of this and the week-to-week nature of these injuries at safety, where they're replacing Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde to this point this year, what's the real impact of that, not only in terms of reps, I guess overall preparation and impact on this defense at this stage of camp in the preseason, projecting toward the regular season?
Yeah, it's important because we're getting down to the time now where they need to get these guys on the field. It was one thing for Mike Edwards to miss almost all of the spring work, the OTAs, the mini camp. He really wasn't out there for any of it. As a new player, they signed him as free agent. He needed to be out there, but he's at least a veteran. So you figured he'll catch up at training camp and be fine. Well, the second day at camp, he hurts the hamstring, and we haven't seen him since. And he's going to be, again, I don't think he's really, they said week to week, so this is 2 weeks now. Maybe he's getting close, but we certainly haven't seen it. So they've got to get him up to speed and get working with the other guys on the defense. And now Cole Bishop, who was going to be, it looked like, given an opportunity to fill in for Edwards, maybe win the job with a great training camp. He's lost valuable reps. He's a rookie. He needed everyone he could get, and now he doesn't have them. So they're in a little bit of a pickle here. Thankfully, Taylor Rapp has been fine. He's going to be the starter on one side, and he's been good. He hasn't gotten hurt. He's practiced every day. They've had to work in DeMar Hamlin. It's been one of the guys getting ones. They signed the 2 guys, Kareem Jackson and Terrell Burgess, last week. They just actually worked yesterday, Sunday. It was the first time they actually participated fully, because they spent the first 2 or 3 days on the sidelines, being tutored what was happening. So they got on the field, but really, can we expect much from those 2 guys? I mean, right now, I believe they're just camp bodies getting them through the preseason, and they're going to bank on Edwards and Bishop coming back. But it's got to happen, Adam. they got to get these guys back, or you might be seeing DeMar Hamlin on the field starting in week 1.
All right, so 2 points related to that. As far as Edwards is concerned, and yes, he's a veteran, but I think it's important to point out, and I've seen this mentioned, and it's very relevant, he's not been in this system, right? And so that's a significant factor in terms of getting him really up to speed and where they need him to be to execute come week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bishop's a rookie. We weren't really I personally wasn't expecting that Bishop was going to win a starting job coming out of training camp, injury or not. I thought Mike Edwards would be the guy who was going to just jump right in there. But, if he's not playing, we've got pretty much a month before the opener. If he's not back within the next 2 weeks, you got to start raising doubts whether he's going to be ready to step on that field, against the Cardinals in week 1. It might have to be, a guy like DeMar Hamlin. I don't think Cam Lewis would be the guy. He's the break glass in case of emergency. But, and I will say this, we were going to talk about Hamlin. We might as well transition to it now.
Sure.
He has looked pretty good. I mean, again, we got to see when we get other opponents running different routes out there in the preseason. But I will say that Damar Hamlin has looked the part. And let's remember, Adam, before the cardiac arrest, he was their starting safety because Micah Hyde missed almost all of that year. So he has some valuable time as a starter in the NFL. In fact, Babich was asked about that. It was either today or last week. It might have been today. I get them confused. There's so many press conferences out here. But he mentioned that it was important that Hamlin can use that experience from 22 to take that forward into 2024. Last year was really a transition year for him. He had to overcome the incredible, surviving the cardiac arrest, getting his confidence back on the field. He really didn't play much. I think he played in 5 games because they were set at safety. So he's gotten past that. It's a huge obstacle that he's cleared now. Now it's football again for Damar Hamlin. And so far from what I've seen, he's looked, I'm not going to say great, he's looked good. Is he starter caliber? I would say if the other guys were healthy, no. But would I be horribly worried if I'm the Bills if he had to start week 1? No, I think he could handle it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you think back to last year and all the coverage that we did, and the first time in pads for him, first contact, absorbing that first hit, all of those things, what he had to go through, inspired so many across the world with his story, and so it's very encouraging for so many reasons that he's back in there in the rotation and is an option for them, a legitimate option, a possible starter. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, when the OTA started, I was wondering if Damar Hamlin had a place on the roster. I mean, he's going into the last year of his rookie contract. There's no investment in him. And when they drafted Cole Bishop and signed Mike Edwards, you start to think, and Cam Lewis is going to make the team because he's so versatile. I was wondering if Damar Hamlin had a place in the roster. Well, I think he does now. I think he's pretty much locked into this roster at this point.
All right, so 2 things left here, and I suppose we haven't talked about cornerback. I know there's a rotation there. Kaiir Elam has shown some positive signs, and it's big for him. And so I'm talking about the secondary in general, because I do think across the league, if you're looking, and I certainly feel this way, I mean, teams are going to go right after them in the secondary, given the changes we have seen. We've talked about it at the safety position. How vulnerable do you think they are in the secondary?
Yeah, well, it's because of the safety positions. I think they're fine at cornerback. I mean, Rasul Douglas is just a seasoned pro. I don't think you have to worry about him. Just line him up, let him do his thing. On the other side, Christian Benford has been good. And you mentioned Elam. Elam, I think, should be pushing him because he's played really well in training camp. He had a play today. He came off the edge on a blitz, deflected the ball. I think it was Allen who he deflected it on. He's had a pick the other night in the stadium. He's looked pretty good. And everyone talked about he was never on the same page with their former DBs coach, John Butler, Jameel. I'm blanking on his last name. Jameel has come in, and there seems to be a connection there. So if that really makes a big difference, maybe, I don't know. But I'll say this. Elam has looked like a much more confident player so far in the practices. So he's another guy when these preseason games start. It's going to be imperative for him to keep showing the way he does. Will he be able to push Benford out of a starting role? At this point, I would say no, because Benford, he's just one of those guys, Adam, that just quietly goes about it and gets the job done. He's a 6th-round pick. Nobody expected anything from that guy, and he just knows how to play football. So I think right now it's Elam as the 3rd guy. But that being said, if there's an injury, it looks like the Bills are okay at the corner spot. It's just the safeties that we have to be a little bit concerned about. And again, you had a safety blanket per se with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. There was nothing to worry about for 7 years. Now it's all new. So that's definitely something to be worried about.
Yeah, Benford, very good player for them. Really hit on that 6th-round pick out of Villanova. Just in the time we have left here, just a couple of moments. New defensive coordinator Bobby Babich talking about you're going to be in the press box this year. And I know there really is no indication. They haven't really addressed who's going to call the defense. I mean, Sean McDermott is going to have his hands all over that, obviously. I don't see him especially early. I would see Sean being very reluctant to turn over those duties to Bobby Babich.
Yeah, I mean, look, he trusts Bobby because Bobby's been here since day one. He came in with Sean in 2017. So nobody knows the defense better on his staff than Bobby Babich. To me, I think he should give Babich the play calling duties. I think Sean, when he talked about how he felt he did last year, he thought he was able to handle both jobs pretty well. But he did admit there were times on game day when he kind of lost track of what was happening on offense and then on special teams, because he would be back at the bench, talking to the defenders while they're on the sideline. So to me, I kind of hope that he gives the duties to Babich, let him go up to the press box where you get a much better view. Quite frankly, Adam, I don't understand how any of these coordinators call plays from the field, because you just do not get the same vantage point that you do upstairs on the 50-yard line where these guys are located. So if Babich is going to go up there, I think he should be the one calling the plays. And, Sean needs to step aside, become, as Marv Levy used to say, the head coach should be the CEO and you delegate duty. That's what I think what Sean should do in this case. Especially where in-game decisions have been a big question mark in the past. Yeah, absolutely. Take a little bit off your plate, Sean. You've got a guy you trust. At least start with it. Remember was it the first or second year? He the one game he took it away from Leslie Frazier, and then he went right back to Leslie. Give Bobby the start of the season, see how it goes, and it might work out fine. That's what I would do. All right, so that takes care of our first installment here. Believe in Bills. It'll be great when we have a preseason game to really dissect and digest at so many levels. That will happen. The Bills open the preseason at home Saturday against the Chicago Bears. So, Sal Maiorana, you read his work all the time, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, fourth decade on the Bills beat. I am Adam Benigni, former sports director at WGRZ TV, host of Sports Talk Live on Channel 2. Going to pick back up week 1, Monday nights, new time this year, 7 o'clock. On Channel 2. We're really excited. Believe in Bills. And Sal, we're going to be doing this 3 times a week now and right into the season, really. Yeah, I think we should get rolling, Adam. We're falling behind the competition here, dude. We got to catch up. We got all these podcasts. Everywhere I turn at training camp, someone's doing a podcast. So we got to get off our butts here and get rolling. Give these guys some competition. You sound like a coach, man. Yeah, I'm ready, man. I'm fired up. As veterans come, they don't come more consistent than Sal Maiorana. Thanks so much, Sal. This is Believe in Bills, and we'll see you later this week here in this space.